All right, good evening, everybody. Sorry we're starting a few minutes late. We're rejoining you back from closed session where we took action on 2 items. The first being an increase in incentives, early retirement incentive. Do we have to report out on how much? No, okay, and so that was unanimous. And then the second was authorizing staff to look into start an investigation on some allegations that were made regarding Encore Charter School. And that was also unanimous. All right, so want to welcome our RUSD CTE student this evening, Eric Huerta, who I think is in the back, who helped get us set up tonight and is working with the team. There you go. Hello, Eric. Eric is a student at Poly High School, and he's part of the media production. So thanks for being here and helping out tonight, Eric. Next, we would like the color guard who's standing by there. Our color guard tonight, and the presentation of the flags provided also by Poly High School, their JROTC, under the direction of Paul Heredia. So take it away.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Harry, colors. Right, face. Forward, march.
Thank you, Paul.
Hey there, Gavin. Tonight we have the pleasure of our Pledge of Allegiance led by Gavin Guerra, who is, did I say that name right?
Yeah.
Yes. And Gavin is a 6th grader, am I right? 6th grader at Mark Twain Elementary School. And he is a real, let's say, a real gift, I guess, to Twain's community. He was chosen for this honor because of the determination and effort he brings to all he does. As a 6th grader at Mark Twain, Gavin participates in guitar club and in advanced band where he plays the trumpet. Gavin is interested in student leadership and serves as a model of citizenship and character for his fellow students. And you are a skilled soccer player here too, I see, who excels at the sport and his favorite position is midfield. Gavin plans to go to college where he may pursue his interests in music and mathematics. That is a good combination, I think. And if you wait right there, I'm gonna come down and you can, in the meantime, if your family's here, maybe ask them to stand up and you can introduce them.
Here with me today is my mom, Yasmin Guerra, my sister, Harley Guerra, my dad, Dustin Guerra, my grandparents, and my Theo Edre.
Today. Thank you. I have a certificate for you. Okay, come on, we're gonna get some pictures. Hello. Nice to meet you. Hi.
meet you.
Thank you, Gavin. If you and your family want to take off, you guys can, but you're welcome to stay as well. Thank you for all being here tonight. Yes, thank you. All right. And just a clarification on that item regarding closed session, we didn't actually take a vote on that second item regarding the investigation. It was just direction to staff. Next, we have a group performance from Ramona High School, 2 students doing a piano duet under the direction of Miss Rhonda Barnes.
Hi, my name is Enrique Soto, and this is Eduardo Garcia. We are both seniors at Ramona High School and in the gold level magnet for piano. Last year, Eduardo Garcia was able to compete in the competition of Riverside's Got Talent, and I was able to perform on the piano tour to Catalina. And also this year, I've been able to perform throughout Riverside.
We are both grateful for piano because of piano. Prior to piano, we had no experience in music. And now because of piano, I will pursue my future as a music major. And now we'll perform Fantasia in F minor.
Pretty amazing. Let's give it up to Ramona High School one more time. All right, while they're clearing out, we've had quite a week last week here in RUSD, and I think we'd be remiss without mentioning it, and just how thankful we are as a board. I know as a parent and a board member, there's nothing more important than the safety of our kids. And each morning, tens of thousands of families trust us with their most trusted asset, their children. And our shared expectation is that they will remain safe, supported, loved, and educated. Last week's event at Castleview was terrifying and tragic, but through Through this event, there were many acts of bravery, courage, leadership, and heroism. So I'd like just to take a moment and recognize a few of the heroes and leaders that went above and beyond last Tuesday and the days that followed. First, the principal, Ms. Ferris. I don't know if she's here today, but she put herself in harm's way when she stood between the suspect and her campus to protect her students and her staff. She led her team through the emergency protocols and lockdown procedures until first responders were on the scene. I no doubt believe that without Tiffany's leadership that day, the result would have been much worse. Second, I want to recognize the ever-protective and loving staff, from the teachers to the principal, secretary, Stephanie, to the classified professionals at the campus. They stepped up and they acted under extreme distress to not only keep our students safe, but to do it in a way that didn't alarm or arouse additional fear in the students. Each and every one of Castleview staff make me extremely proud, and this board extremely proud to be your colleagues. And as a dad, it also makes me proud since I have 2 students in this district. I want to recognize the substitute teacher who was on campus that day, who didn't wish to share his name, who actually engaged the intruder in an attempt to protect those on campus, and Mrs. Montgomery. So he might be a humble man, but his actions were bold, and on behalf of the board, we thank you. On behalf of the board, I'd also like to recognize several individuals from the crisis team that took swift action to lead us through this crisis from the moment it began to unfold. First, Mr. Tim Walker. Let's give Mr. Walker a hand. His experience, his knowledge, and his calm demeanor was exactly the kind of leadership that we needed last week. It is clear that the training, the policies, and the communication from Mr. Walker and his team were highly effective on Tuesday and the days that followed. Every student was led to safety in an organized fashion, and once safe and away from harm, parents were called to unite with their children in an emotional but orderly manner. And once the crisis team ended that evening, a plan was put in place to ensure the emotional and social well-being of every student, every family, and every employee was put first. So thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you, Dr. Charity Blackson Hennings, Dr. Gary McGuire, and your entire pupil services and crisis response team. Thanks to our communications team, led by Justin Grayson. Communicating in times of crisis regarding school sites and school safety is no easy task. Through it all, you calmly and clearly spoke to Castleview parents, RUSD parents, the RUSD team, and our community. Your ability to provide the necessary information to all the stakeholders in such a succinct way while remaining empathetic to all those involved makes me grateful that you're on our team. So thank you, Justin. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Robert, and your entire team. And to the entire cabinet and extended cabinet, thank you for your leadership, no matter what your role was that day and the days that followed. We all came together to support Castleview and one another, whether that involved getting water to the site, food to the site, bathrooms to the park, holding hands with the students as they waited to be picked up from the site, hugging parents, assuring them that everything was okay. No matter what your roles, thank you all for your leadership. And thank you, Dr. Hansen, for leading that team in that effort. And of course, the Riverside Police Department and all the first responders. I realize that it may be your duty to protect and serve, but the support and the actions I witnessed that day far exceeded duty and service, helping to escort and protect 650 plus students to safety and watching over them as they waited at the park, attempting patiently to end the situation peacefully, and at last bringing Mrs. Montgomery to safety are all to be commended of acts of heroism and bravery. So there are many more people I'd like to thank, and I'd like to work with the team at RUSD to help plan a future board meeting recognition to honor all of those that acted so courageously. And as thankful as I am that all the students were safe, all our staff is safe, Mrs. Montgomery is safe, and as proud as I am as everyone in the district and our community for coming together to support Castleview, my heart still goes out to the Keenan family. One of our own kids lost a father, one of our own community members lost a son. In the past few days since the tragedy, we've really felt the love and support from this community. And this morning, when all the students returned to Castleview, the outpouring of love and support from the entire community was unlike anything I witnessed. So I tried to describe the beauty of what I saw this morning, but I instead thought I'd let the video serve as a picture that's worth 1,000 words.
Our kids feel safe, they're back, they want to be back. Of course, we're here this morning praying for the school, praying for the teachers, and just wanting to say thank you to everybody.
Yeah, it was a lot. You kind of get a little emotional when you pull up. You see all the welcoming messages and the cards and the flowers.
We are handing out teddy bears to every single student, and they all are wearing t-shirts that say Castleview Courage.
The purpose of the bears is really to provide comfort for the kids as they're coming back on campus.
The police and fire department both wanted to come out here and show our support to the kids and the staff members and teachers as they make their way back for the first time since last week's ordeal.
It helps a lot, with us parents as well. It was really hard for me today to come and drop off my son, and I'm just glad, that everybody's here to support and help out.
So today we have 35 psychologists and SAP counselors on campus, and they'll be doing some activities with all the kids in the classroom and just kind of helping them process some of the events that went on.
We're hopeful. We're very happy to be back. There's a little bit of nerves, but we know the kids are in good hands.
We have a lot extra campus supervisors on campus. We have extra district employees working in the office with us.
I've been blown away by the school district, law enforcement, emergency services that have been here through this whole thing.
So we want them to come back to school and hopefully not have an ounce of fear to them. That they know that, we're here and they're going to be safe. It's okay.
We're here to welcome back students here, to show our love and to come and support.
This is our community, our family, so I think this should be our obligation. Every school should come here and support the love, the compassion that we have for each other.
And as superintendent, I could not be more grateful for the outpouring of love from this community, and it's indeed a pleasure to serve the city of Riverside.
Yeah, I think the situation was definitely a tragic one, but it brought everybody together, and it really showed how great of a community Riverside is and how great of a community RUSD is.
I think overall kids are very resilient, and you may not notice any differences with your kids. You may notice them being a little bit more clingy or do what we call regressing a little bit, acting a little bit younger than they are, but those kinds of things are normal when their routine's been disrupted and those kinds of things. And so the best thing that you can do is keep their routine normal and being open to having conversations and making opportunities to have conversations with your kids.
I just love seeing how resilient the kids are. They're in good spirits and they're not going to be taken by fear or anything. They're here to start learning again, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
I think us having conversations with the kids has been really, really important. So we've started there, and then I think the school's going to do some activities, do some things that are going to be good for the kids and just get them back in that rhythm and get them moving again.
We are here for your kids. They're going to be supported today. They are loved, and we are so glad to have them back with us today.
Great job. Let's give the communication, the video team a round of applause for putting that together. Yeah, it really was a great morning, and we had asked staff about how was turnout this morning, and every student from Mrs. Montgomery's class was there this morning. And we had, I think, 98% attendance at the school. So I think the parent said it best. She said, "We know our kids are safe." So I think you all should be commended for the reaction that you've all had to this. It shows a lot about our team when we come together in crisis, and the trust that parents have in us just less than a week after this happened. So congratulations to everybody. Okay, all right, so high school representatives, thank you for being patient and waiting. We're glad you're here with us today. So let's start with Arlington High School, Ms. Brianna Navarro.
Oh, thank you. President Lee, Dr. Hanson,
board members. My name is Brianna Navarro, and it is truly an honor and privilege to serve as the representative for Arlington for another year. I'd first like to start off with a little bit about myself. I'm a junior, and I'm actively involved with a few organizations on campus. I play water polo, I'm on the swim team, I'm a member of the Campus Beautification Club, and I serve on the school site council. I'm also in my third year of ASB, where I currently hold the position of ASB secretary. I'm happy to share that we are off to a great start at Arlington this year, and there have been a lot of great things happening in and around our community. We started the year with some of the usual events you see at the beginning of the year. We held our back to school night, we invited students to our beginning of the year after school spirit social, we conducted our lunchtime club rush to promote the 45 clubs we have on campus, we've held our first pep rally of the year to recognize our fall sports teams, and we also used the time to honor and celebrate our AP scholars for their achievements on last year's AP exams. We've also held our first dance of the year, our homecoming dance, and students really seemed to enjoy the play on of Monsters, Inc., except we called it Lions, Inc. Similar to last year, we still find it very important to recognize students and their involvements on campus. We are focusing our efforts to support RUSD's LCAP goals. Staff have identified Student of the Months for September and October, and we held our Student of the Month luncheon at the end of October. In all, 117 students have been recognized. We also brought back a tradition at Arlington known as the Senior Sunrise, where approximately 250 seniors started their day on our football field and enjoyed some breakfast and each other's company. We've also had our Castle Leadership Day, where student leaders on our campus learned how to involve other students on our campus community and help create a more engaging and welcoming campus for all of our students. This year we had over 200 students attend, which is double the amount from last year. Thanks to our Campus Beautification Club and other organizations on campus, Arlington has been involved in 2 cleanups so far in our city, one being on September 30th at Fairmont Park and the other this past Saturday at Villegas Park. I'm also excited to share with you all of the sports teams that have started on a high note. Our girls tennis had another fine season and made it to the 3rd round of playoffs. Our boys water polo team made it to playoffs and finished the season with 22 wins. Our girls volleyball team displayed great sportsmanship and teamwork all season long, and our football team has experienced the best season in years. They are currently 8-2 and have the first round of CAF playoff games this Friday against Quartz Hills and Lancaster. Wish us good luck. Our performing arts programs have also been busy this first quarter of the school year. Our Golden Pride Band and Color Guard have been marching all over Southern California. Our choir program has held 2 successful concerts, and our theater program just completed 6 performances of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Another group equally as busy, if not more, is our Air Force Junior ROTC program. Their Color Guard has presented colors close to 10 times this year, most recently at the State of the District Address and RUSD's 7th Annual Parent Summit. As I mentioned earlier, at Arlington, we find it important that students are involved in different activities and events on our campus that we have to offer. To get more students involved, we need to make sure that students are aware of these events. In this day and age, the place we get most of our information from is on our phones. This is the reason why we've created the Arlington High School app. The Arlington High School app has a calendar of events on campus, access to Haiku and Aries, teacher and staff contact lists, and important days for colleges, and more. The Arlington High School app is available on both the App Store and the Google Play Store. Lastly, I would like to conclude my report by letting you all know that thanks to Mr. Hunt's support, Arlington, in conjunction with Charter Communications, will be welcoming State Senator Richard Roth and State Assembly Jose Medina this Tuesday for Take a Veteran to School event. Senator Roth will be talking with several of our senior students and sharing his experiences as a veteran. Thank you again for this opportunity to share some of the great things happening at Arlington. I look forward to seeing you at my next report. Thank you.
Thank you, Brianna. Our student board member has a question or a comment for you.
Hi, Brianna. So you mentioned the Arlington app. Just out of curiosity, have students already started downloading the app?
Yes, at our homecoming rally, the app was debuted with a video.
Okay, and have ASB already been using it to promote events on campus and sending out notifications and stuff?
I don't know about notifications, but I do know that on the app, we promoted our first event was homecoming, so it was on the app.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. Next, from Martin Luther King High School, Angela Shu.
Good
Good evening, President Lee, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, and esteemed members of the board. My name is Angela Hsu. I'm a senior at King High School, and at my school I'm involved in a variety of clubs and activities, including a business club called DECA, a community service club called Interact, as well as Math Circle, a competitive math club. I'm excited to be representing my school, and I'm excited to share about all our school has been up to, as well as how we are targeting the specific focuses of LCAP. So I'd like to first start on the first goal of LCAP, providing a high-quality teaching and learning environment for all our students. So King, this year we've been implementing a Student of the Month, where teachers nominate a student in each class, highlighting their performance. They get recognized for characteristics such as respect, responsibility, and they're honored at the principal's breakfast. This has definitely motivated our students to try hard in the classroom, and it's improved the learning environment for students. As well as specifically the subject of math, our math department has been really dedicated in providing tutoring for all levels of math. And since implementing this program a couple of years ago, grades have dramatically improved within the past few years, especially in Math 1. Another thing is our Link crew has put on a series of workshops on how to study for the freshmen entering high school. This is always intimidating, and our freshmen have found these workshops very helpful. And as well as all our clubs. There are over 70 clubs at King, and in the first 2 weeks of school, we've had a club rush, where each club had a booth to reach out to students and share a little bit of information about what their club is about, hoping to recruit new members. The second goal of LCAP is to prepare all students to be college, career, and world ready upon graduation. King has targeted this goal through multiple ways. Right now it's college app season for our seniors, which is intimidating, especially for those who are the first member in their family to be applying for college. Our counselors have been very proactive in this effort. They hold weekly college application workshops where they are available to help students answer questions about college applications and work on them every week in the library. As well as our guidance department has organized a series of college presentations. They've invited different private and public schools to come and present to our students about what their school is about, including the UCs, Stanford, Scripps, Cal Baptist, and those are just to name a few. We still have ongoing workshops. These are open to juniors and seniors to let them explore their possibilities. As well as financial aid. Financial aid is always something every one of our students worry about when applying to college. So our counselors have put on a financial aid information night. This presentation talks about FAFSA, qualifications, scholarships, just any sort of information that might be helpful for the parents and students. In one of our clubs, MECHA, has been planning a college field trip where they will allow their members to go visit colleges and see what that's all about. And onto the career aspect of things, we have a wide variety of career technical education courses. These involve such as business, engineering, computer science, game design. We also have respective co-curricular organizations. These allow students to kind of interact with these disciplines outside of the classroom. So for example, for our Project Lead the Way engineering courses, we're having Skills USA, and for our computer science, we have Robotics Club, and for our business CTEs, we also have DECA. And moving on to goal number 3, it is to fully engage students, parents, and the community in support of short and long-term educational outcomes. So, focusing on helping freshmen transition smoothly into the high school experience, our Link Crew program has been really dedicated, really active. Link Crew helps the freshmen transition into high school. They've held some freshman-specific activities, such as the freshman dance and the freshman tailgate. The turnout has been very high and successful, and the freshmen are really enjoying these activities. Second of all, we have a school-wide Hero Points program, where students are able to earn earn points for attending football games, choir performances, anything you can think of outside of the classroom. So this has definitely encouraged participation. In my experience, it really gets all the freshmen excited to see who has the highest amount of points. And our teachers and administrators have also been very proactive in meeting and discussing issues and plans for improvement through their site leadership team. So this is really good that they're making such a good effort to target what concerns our parents have and our students have. As well as community outreach, our football games have been very inspiring in raising cancer awareness and honoring the survivors and fighters of cancer through our annual Pink Out game, as well as veterans. We have a veteran game where we bring the veterans to the field and we honor them with a band performance. So these have been powerful within the local community. And those pretty much cover all the goals of LCAP, but I'd also like to share some academic and extracurricular awards, as well as what our activities and athletics have been up to. So King's ROTC took home first place and several other awards in a public speaking competition involving several schools in the district, as well as our robotics tournaments have started. So you can always see our robotics club, they're constantly building new robots. And DECA, just this past weekend, we hosted and attended a mini conference inviting all the DECA chapters of SoCal. Many of our members took home trophies for that. And King had their homecoming the week of September 29th. It was the Wizard of Oz themed. There's no place like homecoming. And we've also had an art show and charity for Empty Bowls, where students and teachers participated in a lunchtime activity, making bowls and raising money for a charity. Our choir concerts and performances have been going very well. They've been sold out. And our Riverside Kingsmen marching band competitions have started. Our marching band has been many years award-winning, and we're really excited for them. As well as for athletics, girls golf and girls tennis have been undefeated in league, and they are currently competing in CIF, so we're excited to see where they take us. That is all. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, actually, we do have a question for Mr. Hunt.
Angela, thank you for that really comprehensive and well-presented report. Just on your football game themes you've had, in the past, King has honored first responders, officers, police officers, and fire. Did y'all do that this year?
I don't believe we did that this year, but we have done it past years. So I think just with the veterans and with the police, we definitely take into account different community members of the community we can honor, and I think this is an idea for future games too.
Yes. Well, thank you, Angela, very much. Thank you for King.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Next, from Abraham Lincoln High School, Leon Walker.
Good evening, Board President Mr. Lee, members of the board, and Dr. Hansen. My name is Nina Walker, and I am a senior at Abraham Lincoln High School. Tonight, I'd like to begin with information about our academic program. Lincoln is on the quarter system this year, and we have the Excelis program, which is a credit recovery program that assists students to complete their required credits. What I personally like about the quarter system and Excelis is that it allows students to move quickly and effectively. Most students understand that it is actually hard work, but they know that it will definitely impact their academic goals. It also teaches them how to efficiently use their time. We also credit our quarter system with the number of early graduating seniors we have. We have a total of 23 seniors who are on track for early graduation or returning to their home school. Of that number, 4 will be returning to their home school, 19 are on early grad status, and 2 will graduate before the end of the second quarter. Our avid students are focusing on an organizational and study skills that are assisting them in all of their courses. This is Lincoln's first year with the newcomer program, and our personal goal is to provide a successful a successful academic experience with resources in alternative education setting. It is evident that our newcomer program has most definitely affected our students, and they are currently thriving and demonstrating academic growth. Our automotive program is extremely successful, and students are learning how to order parts in addition to basic automotive repair. Additionally, this program has allowed students to explore other avenues of learning the automotive trade. On October 27th, our students took a field trip to UTI, which UTI provided information on additional career opportunities after high school in the auto repair industry. Next, I would like to go over a few campus highlights. Lincoln's new cafeteria opened 2 weeks ago, and Ms. Fisher from Nutrition Services and the students could not be more than excited to welcome the new addition to campus. In addition to this, on November 27th, we will be having our first ribbon cutting ceremony, which will include district officials and special guests in honor of the new opening. We recently ended our softball season, and our season was both learning and growing experience for both our boys and girls softball team. We're now preparing for a successful volleyball season, and we have our first game this Thursday. Lincoln leaders began the school year with rail safety prevention in September, and for the month of October, we presented a school-wide campaign, which included a lunchtime activity to observe breast cancer awareness. We are currently working in groups on substance abuse prevention, which is a project-based assignment that will be presented to students this month. Thank you for having me, and I would like to open this to any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Do you play the ukulele?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you looked familiar.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's good.
Good. Well, good to see you. Thanks for your report. Anybody else?
Bring the ukulele.
Next time you have to bring it. Thank you, Ms. Walker. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And to finish up for the student reports tonight, Madison Hebert from Riverside Virtual School.
Good evening, Board President Mr. Lee, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, and esteemed trustees of the board. It's an honor and a pleasure to be back again this year representing the Educational Options Center. I had so much fun the past 2 years, and I am hopeful for another memorable experience. First off, we took our district writing assessment October 26th. A couple days later, on Halloween Day, I had the pleasure of witnessing some tiny unicorns and pirates parading through the campus. Our preschoolers had a Halloween parade and received candy from students and staff. You would be surprised how many unicorns there were. On the 19th of October, we had our meet and greet, where students and their families enjoyed free hot dogs, tours, support, and activities. Our AVID program has been active again this year, with a trip to UCLA for a football game, which the Bruins won 27-23, and a trip to Cal State LA on the Metrolink. International business has also been active, with a field trip to Cal Baptist on September 29th. Tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., we will be welcoming Lamar Neal from RCC as a guest speaker. And starting today through Friday, we are participating in the Riverside Art Float. For those of you who don't know, everyone will be painting giant spheres, which we will put in the lake at Fairmont Park. In other news, NGSS has been implemented successfully, and our students are thriving in the hands-on environment. Game Design is taking a field trip to UC Irvine for a tour and talk on career opportunities. Opportunity went to UCR Ropes course on November 13th. To finish my report, I wanted to highlight some very special 7th graders. All of our 7th graders this year in RVS are participating in passion projects. Every Friday for 3 hours, they work on something that they feel passionate about. Tonight, I will only be mentioning 4. First, we have Juan Todron, who is confronting social issues with his passion project. He wants to face things such as mental health, suicide prevention, and bullying. We have Tanaya Kelly, who's using documentative photography to fight environmental issues that we've been struggling with, such as pollution and fires. Isaac Guevara, 12 years old, is inventing 50 new recipes, and when I asked him why he chose that for his project, he very enthusiastically told me he loves to cook. Last but not least, we have Vaughn Phillips, also 12, who's still deciding between becoming President of the United States or a full-time magician. He decided to study the brain's ability to perceive and recognize illusions. I hope to follow up on the passion projects in future reports. I hope you enjoyed this. Any questions?
Thank you, Madison. Good to see you again. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here tonight. You're welcome to go home and get some homework done if you'd like. In my attempt to give under D1, Mr. Hardy Brown, a little bit of time to get here. I don't think he's here yet, is he? No? All right, yeah. So on our agenda, we're going to recognize Hardy Brown and the Black Voice Foundation for our partnership in RUSD in relation to our Footsteps to Freedom, which has been a great partnership over the last few years. I want to just recognize him tonight, so maybe we can do that at a later date. And while I was attempting to give him time, I unfortunately skipped over inadvertently a presentation that Mrs. Kakish is going to kick off. So my apologies.
Good evening, President Lee, our esteemed board members, Dr. Hansen. I'd like to present to you Mrs. Nancy Anderson, Senior Director, Member Services from Alliance of Schools for Cooperative Insurance Programs, ASCIP, which is the Joint Powers Authority that we belong to for both property and liability and workers' comp. So Ms. Nancy Anderson is going to present the district with an award. I'd like her to tell you a little bit about the background of that.
Good evening, President Lee, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Hansen, administration, and community of the Riverside Unified School District. It is truly an honor to be here this evening to recognize your district. And the timing this evening is interesting after watching the events tonight and watching the video of Castle View Courage. It is obvious to me that your district is committed to the safety and risk management efforts to help protect your students and the community. While I'm here to recognize your efforts during the 2016-2017 year, it's obvious your efforts and interest in the safety of this community are genuine and ongoing. So I'm really happy to be here. As May's indicated, my name is Nancy Anderson, and I'm the Senior Director of Member Services for the Alliance of Schools for Cooperative Insurance Programs. That's a mouthful. We refer to it as ASCIP. ASCIP is a nonprofit public agency comprised of about 140 school districts and community colleges representing over 1 million students throughout California. Your district has participated in our programs and partnered with us since 1999 to create safer learning environments for the district. As your Joint Powers Authority, it's our job to help you prevent bad things from happening and help you when those bad things do occur by providing you support, services, resource. We also help provide you defense and paying claims when necessary. But more importantly, we'd rather partner with you to prevent those bad things from happening in the first place. When the district prevents those bad things, you're not only reducing the cost of risk, you're conserving your budget so that you can actually put those dollars towards your primary mission here in the district. The award being presented tonight is called Risk Management Pays. This award serves to highlight the importance of proactively reducing district losses during the 2016-2017 year. A big part of creating that safe learning environment is the dedication and commitment of your district staff, such as Mrs. Mays Kakish, your Chief Business Officer and Governmental Relations, Mr. John Preston, your Director of Risk Management, and the employees within the district's risk management department and various other departments who are committed to risk management efforts and safety and identifying those opportunities for improving your district's risk management profile on a daily basis, looking for solutions to help prevent the losses. During the past year, the risk management champions have made employee safety training a high priority. They've provided training such as personal protective equipment, ladder safety, theater safety for staff and students, making aerial lift training available, and also utilizing ASCIP's Employment Practices Hotline, providing safety supplies to staff, and completing site safety inspections and audits to ensure your premises are free from hazards. The combined efforts of this team tasked with managing your district's risk is a testament to the district's passion for creating safer learning environments. So I am pleased and honored to be here this evening to present the Risk Management PAYS Certificate of Achievement, but more importantly, as the name of the award implies, it also comes with a check of $8,000. So again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening and to recognize your district. Now, I do have a plaque too. So Risk Management PAYS Award. Important thing. You want the check, huh?
I'll let the student know.
She's gonna need
it next year.
How do you want us?
Block all my stuff, don't trip over my back. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank you very much. It's part of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We appreciate your support and your recognition and the partnership, and my apologies for keeping you waiting a little bit longer. All right, thanks so much. Quick housekeeping item before we get to the district superintendent's report. I do have one card right now for someone that wishes to speak during the public input portion. So if there's somebody else that would like to speak, please fill out a card and get it up to the front so we can give you that opportunity. All right, Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, President Lee, and members of the board, and those that are in the audience. Thank you for being here this evening. And I know that what President Lee said, certainly I cannot add to the heartfelt gratitude and things that he shared and the events that we've gone through. It was a rather hectic week, but I want to also express my own personal heartfelt gratitude for the outpouring support of Castle View. Certainly our hearts and prayers go out to all of the students, friends, and families affected by this tragedy. And matter of fact, you know, if things are occurring, whether it's October the 1st, Las Vegas, October the 31st, Castle View, this last Sunday in Texas, one of the core values that we have in our district, of course, is well-being. And staff's affected by the things they watch, the things they've perhaps participated in this last week here in Riverside. And so the staff will be receiving an all-staff email tomorrow, and next Monday and Tuesday, counseling services will be provided at the Lou Vanderzeel multi-purpose room auditorium in the evening from 3 to 6. Any staff members that want to come down and to talk, to process, to have support provided for them. And again, they'll receive that invitation with an email, as well as those folks who from the district office were at the park helping evacuate the kids and things such as that. So just wanted the board to know that. And again, so grateful for the staff members that certainly come here every day and they take care of our kids, and we want to turn around and do our best to take care of them and help them process and to talk about some of the emotions and feelings that they might be having. And so you'll see that email going out the next day or two. A couple of other things. I know it's not quite the last one, Michelle, but almost. Our student board member from Poly High School this year, she was the first one of the year, and actually this is the last regular board meeting for Michelle, although she'll be with us on November the 27th for the study session. And we do wait to recognize all the kids at the end of the year, but Michelle, you've just done a great job, and want to personally thank you for that, your leadership and the example you've set. And at the December 4th organization meeting, Maserat Alvarado from Arlington High School will be joining us at that time. And so again, congratulations and thank you, Michelle, for setting the bar high and paving the way for everyone else. And to the board, just remember that on November the 27th, and to the audience, we do have a study session. The topic will be neighborhood schools. It'll be a little bit different than the past because usually our study sessions start at 4:30 or 5, but at the next board meeting, we're going to have a regular closed session from 4:30 to 6, and so our study session won't start until 6 o'clock p.m. But that will be November the 27th, and the topic will be neighborhood schools, which is part of our recent bond that we passed. And last thing, board members, on October the 17th, the Retirement Board of Authority, they assist the district in meeting funding requirements for future retiree health and welfare obligations. Well, they met, the board authority, to discuss the trust fund. And members of that retirement board include Maze Kakish, Kylie Barra, Sandra Meekins, John Preston, and Mrs. Patricia Lock-Dawson. And the retirement board has determined that the trust fund shall be invested with the goal of achieving an annual target net rate return of 6.9%. And they recommended moving from the moderate to the moderate growth fund to accomplish this objective. And just wanted to report out on that. And Mrs. Lock-Dawson is a member of that board. Do you want to add anything to that at all? Okay, thank you. And then I'd like to turn some time over to Mrs. Carmody, our Chief Academic Officer, to provide an update from Educational Services.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know that recently we have been awarded 2 different grants. One is a bilingual authorization grant, and it's going to provide us with $625,000 worth of training. It was a competitive grant from the CDE, and it's going to give us an opportunity to get more bilingual authorization, which should fuel our DLI program and other opportunities. So we're doing that in collaboration with UCR Extension, who's going to provide the credentialing courses, one. Another opportunity is also in partnership with UCR, and it is a civics grant, and it will provide some research and be able to provide a civics program across our district. So that one is about $155,000 over 2 years. There's been some great activities in the last couple of weeks. We had our 5th annual Pathways to College that served up to nearly 300 families, students, or parents. We also had just last week in the 7th annual Family Engagement Summit, and we had 300 parents there who had a lot of opportunity to have community resources and have some education as well. Last Thursday, we had our Coding Summit, which is our 2nd annual. We served over 650 participants and the opportunity to support 19 other districts who were in attendance. Very exciting. Just this next week, we're going to have our Inspire Her Mind, which is an opportunity for young ladies to have some STEM training in the fall, and then in the spring they get some leadership development training. And then Patricia Lock-Dawson is going to be our keynote, so I think that's exciting. This year we're also expanding it to Inspire His Mind because we got some feedback that it just wasn't fair, and we decided it was true. So this is exciting for us to, and that will start in this coming up spring. Last thing I just want to mention, at the last board meeting, following the data presentation, Dr. Hansen called for an equity task force to kind of examine some of the data points where there's gaps and potential barriers in opportunities. And so we just wanted to let you know that we already have set the first meeting. We're in the task force development members stage right now, and that meeting will be for Tuesday, November 28th at Central Middle School from 5 to 7 p.m. And we'll give you more information about that in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Carmody, and board, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson. Thank you, Mrs. Carmen-Day. Next, we have public input, and I have one card, so we'll have Mr. William Hawkins come up and join us. He wants to share a topic that's not on the agenda about safety. Good evening, sir. And just a reminder, you have 3 minutes, and we can ask you any kind of clarifying questions, but since the item is not agendized, we can't go back and forth with debate and questions. But staff can
thank you very much.
Get back to us. Thank you, sir.
I got up this morning. I had no clue I would be here right now, so I apologize. I found out around 2 o'clock that I could possibly speak to the board in regard to safety. And I initially came up with the site that I work at, project team on this campus behind this. But I feel due to the Castleview situation, safety should be looked at closer than it has been. It has tightened up because I also go to other schools. It's tightened up recently, and I appreciate seeing that. I have grandchildren in the district as well, and my wife and 2 daughters work for the district, so I have a personal interest in it as well. I actually have been here 18 years. I really love these kids, and I want their safety. I want to go ahead and bring up a few issues, and again, I'm taking it away from Project Team as more putting it to the district. I think picture IDs like these, as opposed to the metal ones that are better looking, these are more safety oriented, because if I'm wearing one of the metal ones, they can't tell if I'm me or her or you or I think the picture IDs should be what we have. Dutch doors type of thing. Our initial weakness is our entrance to the schools. Project Team has a different problem because they have many entrances because we are part of this school or this campus. But we have to be able to put a choke point where people come onto the campuses. That includes the buses. When the buses come in, there has to be some way that the buses come in only and not other people. I've challenged many times, many people, including district people that I did not know and recognize because I did not see a badge on them. They should not be able to come on to the campus unless they are district employees. That includes all the other schools that don't run with badges or name tags. The coming onto campuses with buses, they should have, I think, electric gates that let the buses in and then close. We have our secretary that goes out and closes our gates. And then when cars come up, she goes out and opens them. I think that's a waste of time, and I think the danger is still there. As far as, I don't know what exactly they would have, but I think to enter a school, they should have, for lack of anything better to say, torpedo tube type doors where you open one to get in, it closes, then you open another to get out. So you don't have both doors open. We need to be fenced off as far as the smaller areas, easier to cover. I've come up to an individual and had to escort him off that was in a full hoodie, sunglasses and on a bicycle, wearing a jacket, and it was hot. So I was afraid he could have hurt somebody, so I took him off the campus. Today, I had a couple come up to me in the classroom. They came up to the door and asked me directions to one of the buildings. I should have had to talk to the individual. I did, but he shouldn't be there because he might have been one of the people that would hurt these kids. These thoughts are sketchy. Again, they were done after 2 o'clock, and I appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Hawkins, and thanks for sharing your comments in writing too. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, next we have our district employee reports, and first we're going to hear from the kindest and coolest 6th grade teacher at Washington Elementary in the early 90s, and the current president of RCTA, Mr. Tim Martin.
You are so gracious. Good evening, President Lee, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. It is good to be here tonight with you all. I too, Mr. Lee and Dr. Hanson, would like to share some thoughts about Castle View, because a tragic event can often illuminate who we are as people and what is truly important. Never has kids first been truer than on that Tuesday. Every single adult at that school dropped everything to take care of their students, ignoring their own fears. Scores of district managers arrived to provide help however they could. The Riverside Police Department and first responders were at the school almost immediately and in great force. Everyone there that day worked in a sacrificial and sensitive way to make sure every child was supported, kept safe, and returned home. Also, the community response has been a testament to the goodwill of the people of Riverside, as many, many individuals and businesses have responded with such kindness and generosity to the students and staff at Castle View. One example among many examples is an afternoon spent bowling. A Castle View parent and RUSD teacher organized a trip to a bowling alley for Castle View students to spend the day with each other and get their minds off of the events of Tuesday. That bowling alley discounted the cost for each student. A supermarket provided free candy for the bowlers. And the Riverside Police Officers Association paid the bill. We live in a community who has been pitching in and will for days to come, I am sure, to help students and staff through a challenging time. It is also important to recognize that the needs generated by that event made job titles unimportant, and common service in the face of that need the only right response. Bus drivers and superintendents, board members and teachers, office and custodial staff, psychologists and counselors, the campus supervisor and M&O, have shared the common purpose of helping children and colleagues, each working together side by side. I have several friends whose children attend Castle View. They have commented on how reassuring the district response has been. They have been pleased to see President Lee and other members of the board, Dr. Hanson and his cabinet and other district managers, and teachers who don't work at Castle View, our PGS support teachers, be so involved in the work of getting students and teachers back to school today. And I know how much is being done for Linda Montgomery. There are difficult days ahead for Linda. There are difficult days ahead for the students and staff of Castleview. There are difficult days ahead for a 6-year-old who lost her dad and a mother who lost her son. Thank you, President Lee and members of the board, Dr. Hanson and your staff, and all the others for all that you did on that day and all you have done since that day to start their recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next, report from the president of the Riverside Association of School Managers. He's already here, Mr. Wilson Quayler. Nice to see you, sir.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Lee, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. Thank you so much for your time. RASM is currently working on the following. We will be sending out nominations for this year's Access Administrators of the Year Award, and we are very enthusiastic about sending nominations to the region. We value and celebrate the amazing talents of our school administrators, and we look forward to their recognition at the region and state level. In the upcoming weeks, we will also be sending out a request to all of our high schools for nominations of Access Every Student Succeeding Award. We look forward to reading all the stories that will come along with these nominations. And only one student is selected per region, and we hope to have one of our students from Riverside be selected to represent our school district. Just last week, Richard Levins from Ramona High School was represented and recognized and celebrated at the ACTA conference in San Jose. We were also able to award a scholarship for one of our administrators to attend the ACTA Leadership Conference last week. We would like to send out congratulations to Principal Anthony Rice from Abraham Lincoln High School. Mr. Rice has been selected as the Equity Chairperson for our RASM organization, and he looks forward to working with our school board and also our region in bringing equity awareness to our school district. Finally, the RASM Executive Board is excited to present a professional development opportunity for our members on January 31st, 2018. In collaboration with our personnel department, we will be presenting a workshop on effective interview skills and professional job applications. Our intention is to provide our members with effective practical ideas and tools as they prepare for potential career opportunities. Lastly, Castleview Courage. Collectively, our thoughts and prayers accompany the staff and community of Castleview Elementary. It was wonderful to see our students and staff back to school today. We are inspired by the bravery, compassion, and the spirit of hope displayed by the members of our district, the entire community of Riverside, from first responders to the families and staff of Castleview, the leadership of Principal Harris, and the support of our school district and our board members, and the courage of our young students at Castleview Elementary to be able to come back to school today with those smiles, those hugs, and the opportunity to get back to learning. We are moved by the unity of our school district and our community, and we are proud to serve our district. So on behalf of the Riverside Association of School Managers, we thank you for your guidance and for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilson. Next up, we have the consent agenda. These items usually taken as one, as they are considered routine by nature. I would like to pull item number 4.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda without item number 4.
Thank you, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. Mr. Hunt, did you want a second, Mr. Hunt?
Yes, sir.
All right, so Mr. Hunt seconds. So if we could please vote. All right, that passes unanimously. If we could have a motion for item number 4 by itself.
Oh, do you want to talk?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, just for the reason why was that item has to do with gifts that were received. And I made one of those gifts, or my office did, so I'm not going to vote on it.
Oh, I see. So you want to abstain from the vote then?
Yes.
Okay. I'll move approval of item number 4 without President Lee.
Second, okay, thank you. Motion and a second. Open up the voting again.
Missing somebody. Yeah.
There we go. All right, that also passes 5-0 with 1 abstention. All right, thank you very much. Next, I think we're on action. And Mrs. Kakish is here to talk about the issuance of some parity bonds for a CFD.
Good evening again, President Lee, members of the board, Dr. Hansen. This item is regarding a request to approve a resolution 2017-18-16, and that is to authorize the issuance of the bonds for the Community Facilities District number 15. I'd like to invite Mr. Adam Bauer, CEO and President of Fieldman Roll-Up and Associates, to give a little bit of background and answer any questions with regards to this issuance.
Well, good evening. Good to see everyone again. And we had done a brief presentation to the Finance Committee, but the reason why we're here this evening is the CFD number 15, Improvement Area 3, is very close to completion, meaning that we can issue the 3rd series of bonds. Unlike a lot of your CFDs, you just have 1 series of bonds. This one was built in phases. That 3rd phase is here, all those building permits issued. And so that's one piece of it. So that provides for money for the school district fees, the water agency fees, and also the city fees. But while we're doing this, one of the prior series of bonds could also be refinanced or refunded for savings. On a standalone basis, I would not recommend doing it. It doesn't quite have enough savings. But when you're combining it with this series, a lot of the fixed costs are already covered. And so we're able to refinance that initial series and also sell the new series. And for that one that we're refunding, we actually are lowering the taxes for the special taxpayers within that CFD. And so the resolution before you this evening authorizes, within the parameters of that resolution, the finance team and district staff to move forward. Should you approve that this evening, we would be able to, let me get to the schedule here. Price the bonds on or around November 14th and have a closing the first week in December. And that's when the money is available. And then the following year is when the special taxes would be lowered for those taxpayers. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Dr. Farouk?
I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Patricia Lock-Dawson seconds. Mr. Hunt, did you have something?
Yes, I just wanted to ask what I'm glad it went before the Finance Committee, what your review of this was. I mean, did y'all recommend approval?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to?
Sure, yeah, no, we heard Mr. Bauer had a more extensive presentation to us. We spent quite a bit of time on it, and we met the developer of the housing development. But no, it's very good. It's nice when we can do something like this and save folks money, but make it good for us too. It's kind of a win-win. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All right, that carries 6-0, unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a resolution on whole system engagement. Mrs. Carmen Day.
Good evening, Board President Lee, Dr. Hanson, esteemed board members. Tonight I'm making a recommendation that the board approve a whole system engagement resolution. If you remember, step 4 in our guide for instructional direction explicitly lays out some ideas for whole system engagement. And some of the ideas in the resolution, gotta turn it on, is to solidify and make the full commitment in a formal way to creating a district-wide effort of a culture of active engagement. And this means that we're activating our students, employees, and families and communities around the work. It includes the idea of the Schools Plus 2 for our students, but also the engagement work that we're doing with strengths with our students and adults. You'll see that it's part of the idea that students are leading their own learning, which is a higher level of engagement, and that it is some of the engagement specifics that is laid out in the portrait of a graduate. This is also measured in several ways that are explicit, and for employees, for example, it would be measured through lowering absenteeism and increasing retention of teachers, as an example. For our students, it would be focused on student achievement foremost, but also their well-being or engagement measured through Gallup. Both of these two we would measure through Gallup as well. So the background on this, if you recall from our 12 success indicators, it's engagement is one of the 12 success indicators, but prior to that, through the state's local control and accountability plans, there's 3 different areas, one of which is engagement, and this idea of actually being explicit about developing a climate and culture of positive engagement for our students primarily. So our district's out in front. I wanted to make mention that we've contacted CSBA, and they are very interested in the work that we're doing because there's not another district in California that has set it to resolution. And then from that, we want to go ahead and put it to policy. So I'm making a recommendation that we approve the resolution.
Thank you, Mrs. Carmondate. Is there any discussion from the board? Dr. Farouk?
I motion to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Mrs. Alabi?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Quick question for me before we vote. So I'm really supportive of this innovative work. I think this sends the message long-term that this is what this district's committed to. And maybe the details will be later in the policy. Are we going to associate some metrics to what whole system engagement looks like, what it is that we're trying to attain to?
Absolutely. So a couple that I mentioned, for example, employee retention, a reduction to absenteeism, the engagement that we measured through the Gallup survey for both adults and students would be a few. So absolutely.
And there'll be like hard numbers associated with that, so we know if we're being
absolutely.
Okay, great. I think it's.
Can I add one other thing?
Please.
So at the end of this month, we will be actually presenting the concept at CSBA through a panel that Brent Lee, Dr. Hanson, and a couple other members will be part of. And then from there, we want to show you our formal first draft engagement plan that a whole system engagement committee has been working on for about a year and a half now. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Carmondate. Okay, if there's, Mr. Hunt, did you have something?
Just had a question for Ms. Carmondate. Just, I support this, and thank you and Dr. Hanson for bringing this forward. To Mr. Lee's question about efficacy in a matrix, I would just like to see and hear your thoughts, not right now, but as you look at it, you and Dr. Hanson, I love the Gallup and all that sort of thing, but it's a little distant, and I wonder if you couldn't randomly choose some focus groups of students and personnel and teachers and personnel, just to get random groups together. And there's a group here in town called Owl Associates, I think it is, that does these, but could help you pull that together, and we could hear some real-time flesh and blood interaction. So just a thought.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. All right, we do have a motion and a second, so I'll open up the voting. All right, thank you, board. That carries unanimously. The resolution passes 6-0. So I guess that means we can present at CSBA now. All right, number 3, we're going to hear a summary of the dashboard alternate school status application, and Dr. Jackie Perez is here today.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So for the next few slides, I'll provide an overview of our request to approve the DAS application for Summit View. So State Board of Education has recognized the need for alternative schools to be accountable for modified methods of measurement. Given that they are alternative programs, they have different services to students. So in May 2017, they approved a recommendation for the process of DAS. What that does is replace ASEM, which most of our alternative schools are under, with the exception of Summit View. So what DAS does, it will still hold the schools accountable to the dashboard, but will have nuances based on the specific program, and those are still to be determined. So our request is, and this is just a reminder of what our other sites are that we did not need to submit an application for. So what we're requesting that if approved, we will go ahead and submit an application for Summit View by December 1st. State Board of Education will review our application to be included in the DAS. Again, they will then be part of the alternative measure to be reported on the dashboard in fall of 2018. We anticipate the application process to go through mid-January, if not March, at the next State Board of Education meeting. So if you have any questions.
Mrs. Allaby.
Yes, I have a question. So on the dashboard, for every school in the district, it'll look exactly the same. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any way to denote which our alternative schools are? I mean, how will they, or will it just be listing the information?
So that is a good question. We don't know what it looks like yet, and we believe they're still in development, especially with the specific nuances within each indicator. So that's to come.
So we'll just wait till they get their act together. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Allaby. Anybody else before I ask for a motion?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Lockdawson. Do you have a second? Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Please vote. One more. Missing one vote. Can everybody try pushing their little guy and vote again?
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. That also passes 6-0. Thank you, Dr. Perez. Next, we're going to hear a report from Lynn, I guess, regarding UCR and STEM.
Good evening, Board President, Dr. Hanson, esteemed board members again. We wanted to provide you with a brief update on the UCR STEM High School. And to do that, I wanted to just remind us of the timeline. So back in May, we had a pretty extensive study session where we recommended some areas of study and then discussed some of the program elements. We, in July, then had a signing for our term sheet. We had, from that point, went out and looked at some proposed alternative sites based on the need, and Sergio San Martin will go through that a little bit on the why. And then just recently, we had a pretty in-depth planning meeting with UCR, and we're into the planning next steps currently. Just as a reminder for you, The size of the school remains at the capacity of 800 students. We just recently had a report specific to the lottery and recruitment, and we're in full efforts of recruitment at every site, making sure that there's awareness and support. Our educational program remains the same as far as high-level STEM, the idea of equity and interdisciplinary work for our students. We are looking at the areas of study. Currently, next Monday, the 13th, the working group on the areas of study are coming back together to discuss if we can involve some similar labs or reduce some of the 6 additional areas of studies that we had recommended. And then finally, on the lease, since there is 2 proposed sites and Watkins is a preferred site, we are asking UCR, and they are currently doing it by the end of this week, to drop in the proposed site of Watkins and also as an alternative contingency language on the Blaine site. And Sergio San Martin's going to come up and talk a little bit about the process and those potential sites. I also wanted to let you know.
So, just a second, Ms. Carmen, I was letting you finish that slide, but Mr. Hunt had something.
Sure. She can finish. Go ahead. I'll wait. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Okay, I'll ask a question then on this program's element update. So the size of the school, you said 800, that's at any one time, correct? Because didn't we talk about having up to 1,200 students, because you'd have 400 full-time, 400 or 800 part-time?
The capacity of the building would be 800, so if you have full-time and part-time, then you would have up to 1,200 students, correct?
All right, and then as far as areas of study, I know I asked about this last meeting or 2 meetings ago about status of FFA. We got an update. I appreciate that. And I can't recall if one of those areas of study that was being considered is something to do with like agricultural sciences.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right, that's it. Cool.
Hey, okay, but my question sort of dovetails on yours. So,
Go ahead.
so what I understand then, so future, I know right now we're talking about 400 full-time, but the building will be, the campus will be built to accommodate 800 full-time if a future board with changes in Riverside. I personally think the changes in technology will change the way the other campuses interact with the STEM campus. I think we'll see that. So there will be room for 800.
The capacity will be 800, whether it be full-time, part-time, or both.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I wanted to also let you know that the UC Regions is in a socialization process with the chancellor, so we're in process, as well as the potential of discussions that will take place with the regions either March or May, and then business to actually approve and work towards the actual lease. That we are and have had an initial meeting with the Faculty Senate, and we'll be on 2 of their agendas to talk through with them some ideas that they may have about the STEM high school, as well as some areas that they might want us to consider. And then finally, that we would engage the community as early as possible in the potential sites, and as early as this Thursday with UCR's community meeting, to let them know where we're thinking about the STEM high school, and let them know about the additional lottery seats for the area, and if we can help support their knowledge of the STEM high school. Okay. At this time, Sergio San Martin is going to come up and give us a little bit more detail on facilities and the project itself.
Thank you, Ms. Carmen. Good evening, President Lee, Dr. Hanson, Board of Trustees. This next section is a brief overview of the project timelines. The timelines include various categories, which keeps our teams on task. We are currently in the planning and due diligence process, which is part of the site planning and educational specifications milestones. This phase will take us through September 2018. This next slide gives us more detail on the milestones on each categories. We are currently in the second quarter of the 2017-2018 school year, and you can see the more detail of each individual category and all the milestones within those categories. Again, this is part of the planning phase and due diligence. As we continue with the planning phase, the recommended project site location will be determined. Currently, UCR has identified 2 alternative potential sites, Site 1 being on Blaine Street and the second on Watkins Drive. Between both sites, the walk-in site appears to be the preferred location. We are currently going through our due diligence and site analysis to identify and confirm that this is the preferred location. However, further analysis will determine the most favorable site. Right at this point, staff is looking with UCR together at the Watkins site. In the next 10 to 12 months, we will be completing the planning phase. We will engage in the project design development, commence the UCR ground lease agreement between UCR and the Riverside Unified School District, and begin the project CEQA process. The due diligence site studies include environmental line surveying, risk assessments, geotechnical and seismic related studies, soil sampling, and Title V to meet the state requirements.
Mr. San Martin, if you could take a question from Mrs. Halvey.
Thank you. I noticed that UCR has a design review process, and I wondered when we should enter into that to make sure that our architects and all are working with their design review process.
Yes, we're started that already with them. Okay. We've had our various planning meetings with them. We're currently developing the project program in terms of educational specifications to get us into schematics and conceptual design. When we get to that level, then we will include in working with UCR and their teams to work on the design to meet their requirements.
This is purely, I would imagine, external, correct?
External?
Yes, the way it looks on campus as opposed to not the way it functions.
Both. Well, UCR has their own planning requirements in terms of aesthetics, size, colors, landscaping, and so forth. But at the same time, we're working with our team internally to develop our project description and specifications. More of the internal floor plan, size of classrooms. With UCR, it's more the aesthetics, access to the facility, parking location.
I guess I'm asking whether or not their design review process looks to the interior of the building or only to the exterior of the building.
Well, right now we're still determining that. UCR is asking us to include them in the planning phase, in a design phase, and even including in the inspection of the project. So later on, we'll have a little more detail on how detailed and specific they want to get into our specific project.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Carbondale, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I would like to add, part of this partnership really is targeted at utilizing the strengths of both UCR and our team. And so we welcome some of the expertise that they can provide us on the inside of the building, but it's not an expectation. But we plan on doing this together as a team, all from today, yesterday, all the way through to the completion of the project. So yes, we probably will have them as part of that discussion to be an asset for us.
I guess what I was trying to clarify is, I sat on our design review board here in the city of Riverside for many years, and we could close a project down if we didn't feel it met the city's design requirements. I'm just asking, where does UCR's power stop when it comes to design? Is it purely on the outside, or will they also have a lot of clout to determine the interior of the building?
Right. We do, because we're on UCR's property, we need to abide by their defined requirements in terms of materials, aesthetics, landscaping. Our project is our project. We have our architect, our design team, who will work with the Educational Services Department and my department to define the actual floor plan of our project.
If you recall from the term sheet, it's external in the term sheet. Doesn't talk about the internal, but there's the expectation on the external.
I have a different question, but as long as, may I suggest, Mr. President, as long as the architect decided to come and attend our meeting tonight and has dealt with these things, if he might come up and answer a little more specifically Mrs. Alavi's question, I think that Roger can give us some insight. He's been working with them, so.
Sure.
Unless he's here for final comments, just to hear our pithy remarks, but.
Hello, Mr. Clark.
Good evening, President Lee, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. I think the answer to your question is that, and what Sergio's tried to say, we're getting things mixed up a little bit in terms of the design review component of what UCR does exactly what you're saying in terms of looking at the exterior of the building, the landscaping, parking, and access and egress. But UCR is also keeping control over plan review also in terms of plan checking, and that's checking the structural design, even the fire life safety and access compliance. And so they're trying to exert that control also. There's a little bit of discussion about whether we go through Division of the State Architect or UCR's plan review, and that's something that we're going to have to jointly decide which direction you're going to go, or go to both agencies and have a dual plan review. And so that's the part that I think is up in the air a little bit right now.
Mr. Hunt, did you have something?
Yes, I wanted to ask a question for Dr. Hanson and Mrs. Lynn Carmen Day, and it doesn't have to be answered now. You know, I've been sitting up in this dais with Mrs. Alavi for 10 years, so if I didn't know it, she would have told me that how art enhances the learning process. We saw two young gentlemen tonight who'd never played the piano before. So my question is, just to answer me later, is why are we building a STEM school and not a STEAM? Why isn't our program a STEAM program? Here we have Anne Marie and our two board members working on VAPA, and why wouldn't we combine it? Wouldn't it make sense to have art being a part of what's happening over there, particularly with game design and a lot of things that are coming about in that these young people can go into GIS and all of that. So just a question I've had.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Dr. Farouk.
I strongly want to echo Trustee Hunt's comments. I completely agree. And I think to some extent, there is already some art being incorporated. So it makes, I think it would be prudent for us to highlight and brand it accordingly. My question is to Mr. Clark. If you mentioned that we might have to go, whether it's dual with the state architect board or the UCR, how could that potentially impact the timeline? And I'm assuming there isn't real precedence for this, right? So, yeah.
There isn't much of a precedent for it. What the Division of State Architect will allow is that you only go through UCR. However, what you would have to do basically in perpetuity was send a note home to all the parents that it wasn't plan reviewed by the Division of the State Architect. Not that it's not safe, because the building code is the building code, and so theoretically they've checked it, they've inspected it, what have you, but you would have to send that notice, and there's a provision in the education code that would allow you to do that if you chose to do that. The timeline wouldn't be necessarily affected as long as the two agencies didn't have conflicting requirements. We won't know that, though. If we do both, we won't know that until they actually do that plan review. So I don't suspect that there'll be a big impact from the dual plan review. It is going to take some more time for us to respond to two sets of comments and those kinds of things. But in terms of the plan check time, we don't think it's going to be particularly onerous.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Anything else, Dr. Farouk? Okay, Mrs. Alavi.
Thank you. I was going to go back to your STEAM question, because the STEM school does a lot of creative design and very creative things now. But I've always objected to the term STEAM because I think it's misleading to the public. It makes it think that they're going to be getting pure art classes, painting, drawing, choir, theater, as opposed to the creative elements that go into more scientific and engineering and graphics. So I've kind of objected because I think it is confusing to people. What is the art that you're really giving them? It's not the art, it's not what you consider the traditional art. And I just don't think that that's good for the public to say, well, where's your marching band? You know, I just think that we ought to be clear about what kind of creative skills we're teaching them in that context, so.
Thank you, Mrs. Alvey.
My explanation.
Dr. Farouk?
I mean, obviously, this could be a broader conversation outside of this specific agenda item, but I think that the fact that the art is sandwiched in the context of science, technology, engineering, and math, that it's understood that it's of interdisciplinary nature, and that the fact that it's integrated with design and things like that, people's perception and expectations of it would be according to that context. And it's a matter of opinion, not saying one is right or the wrong, but I just think that context, I think, that's something I think there is a lot of precedence for. So this is my 2 cents.
Mr. Hunt.
Well, I did say I'd take the answer later, but I think, and Mrs. Alvey, I certainly agree with it that, we talked about they're not going to have those kind of classes, or the marching band and the choir and all that. But it just seems to me, the more I look at, when I look at these avenues of education, that they're all intertwined with art, and it's a different type of art. It is, but it's an art that is moving so rapidly in our day and age that I can't help but think it's going to become right alongside the painting and the sculpturing and the ceramics, and I just feel that it is integral. But I would like to hear, not now, but from Dr. Hansen and Ms. Lynn Carmen-Day, and I'd like to get people like Anne Marie's input. Is there a different kind of art that makes sense to be included and articulated? I don't mean now, Dr. Hansen, but later. So, thank you.
Mrs. Lochthausen.
I don't even think that, I think it's kind of a strange thing to call something STEAM or have to give it a name, actually, because I do think science is inherently creative, as is math. And I do think if it's a really high-quality STEM program, there will be creativity imbued in the discovery process, and I think that will occur naturally. And I think there will be opportunities for art and music, but, to me, a high-quality mathematics program would include music in the instruction. And so, a high-quality biology program would look at creative ways to explore different things, with different ways of thinking. So, I don't know. I don't really have an issue with either one of them, but it's just my opinion.
Well, no.
Yeah, I think these new acronyms and buzzwords are always interesting. I think at CSBA there was a Golden Bell. I'm not being disparaging to this district, but they won an award, a Golden Bell Award for STREAM. So science, technology, reading, art for reading. It's like, okay, I hope that we're teaching our kids reading, but right, you got to be careful, I think, with these education buzzwords sometimes. Anything else for Mr. San Martin or Ms. Lynn Carmen-Day or Mr. Clark? Okay, thank you for the update on STEM. All right, so next, our last item on the report. We've finally getting to this. I know we had this on the agenda a few other times, but for time's sake, we weren't able to get it. So Mr. Tim Walker and your team here giving us a update or report on the Mental Illness and Wellness Master Plan.
President Lee, Dr. Hansen, members of the board, I am pleased to bring to you this evening an overview of the work that has been done by the initial committee to create the preliminary mental health and wellness master plan. I believe that there are members of the committee here with us this evening, and I'd like to ask them to stand and be recognized. Tonight's presentation is intended to provide you with a number of outcomes. First, Dr. Charity Plaxton Hennings and I will identify tiers of social emotional prevention and intervention as delineated in the RUSD Guide for Instructional Direction, and identify where education-related mental health services, or ERMS, fits within this model. Next, Dr. Hennings will review the overarching mental health and wellness goals within the preliminary mental health master plan. We will also provide background information in targeted areas regarding the utilization of educationally related mental health services funding. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Plaxton Hennings to the podium to discuss the tiers of social emotional prevention and intervention, as well as walk through the 7 goals of the preliminary plan. I will return to provide deeper clarification of goal number 3 and the education-related mental health services funds that are used in that area.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. The tiers of social emotional support, consistent with the instructional guide for direction, emphasize that social emotional well-being and mental health begin with prevention and global supports provided to all students in the form of building positive relationships with school staff, training schools to be aware of and respond to students' social emotional needs, and by building the capacity of school staff to respond to the behavioral and social emotional needs of students. As we move into Tier 2, delineated there in gray, we emphasize the direct services to students in the form commonly of group and individual counseling done by school psychologists and SAP counselors to target students whose social and emotional needs are impeding their academic success. Finally, Tier 3, at the top of the pyramid, are intensive intervention services focused on students demonstrating severe needs who, without these services, would not be successful in the traditional school setting. These services include intensive individual and group therapy, social work services, psychological consultation, intensive behavior interventions, and in-depth clinical assessments. As a point of reference, educationally related mental health services are traditionally considered a Tier 3 service and are targeted to our special education students whose mental health needs are the most severe. I will be reviewing all 7 broad mental health goals in order to provide the context for Goal 3, which specifically relates to educationally related mental health, or ERMS, mental health funds. In goal number 1, this goal focuses on building cohesive and collaborative health teams comprised of all staff members, including school psychologists, school counselors, and SAP counselors who train, consult, and plan together to develop and deliver social, emotional, and mental health prevention and intervention services. In Goal 2, this goal builds upon the current district initiatives in the areas of social, emotional, mental health, and well-being, such as restorative practices, positive behavior intervention, and suicide prevention by conducting ongoing assessments of students' social emotional needs in order to maximize the positive impact and ensure the ongoing implementation of these innovative programs. Furthermore, these involve conducting ongoing assessment of students' social emotional needs in order to consider the development of additional programs designed to meet these needs. In goal number 3, this goal targets special education identified students whose needs exceed the targeted interventions and programs of Goal 1 and Goal 2. Mr. Walker will be detailing in depth this goal following the review of all 7 goals. In goal number 4, this goal enhances the work that's currently being done in recognizing the impact of trauma on the social, emotional, and subsequently the academic functioning of students. And in goal 5, in this goal, we build upon the cutting-edge evidence-based practices of threat assessment currently being utilized in RUSD in order to build capacity, uniformity, and skill in responding to potential threats to student safety. In Goal 6, this goal emphasizes creating relationships with community agencies in order to expand the resources we offer special education students who are struggling to be successful in traditional school settings. These relationships include university behavioral health, social work agencies, and other agencies whose stated goal is to support students with mental health needs. And finally, in Goal 7, this goal creatively builds capacity for the provision of services to students by establishing mutually beneficial partnerships between institutions of higher learning and Riverside Unified School District for the purposes of training and supervision of high-caliber interns and expansion of services provided to RUSD students and their families.
Thank you, Dr. Jennings. Mrs. Alvey has something.
Oh, thank you. I'm referring to Goal 1 in building our mental health teams. Are those teams already in place?
It actually depends on our school sites, and that's really what the focus of this goal is that some of our school sites, we have all of the personnel, our staff counselors, our school counselors, and our psychologists working collaboratively, meeting on a regular basis, and really looking at students' needs and triaging those needs and deciding how effectively they as a school can address those needs. In other school sites, we're still working on building those teams, and so the design of this goal is to further the focus of those teams and continue to build that capacity within our school sites.
Well, I was curious, like on an event like what we had at Castleview, which is so traumatic, do you call up Team A? I mean, and do those people know they're on Team A and they come Team A, or how does that work?
Yes, we do. The current structure of the crisis team is we have three. We have Team A, B, and C, and those are comprised of 5 to 6 members of school psychologists. But in building capacity in the district, although our crisis team is comprised primarily of school psychologists, at this point we have trained about 90% of all of our school counselors and our SAP counselors in the National Prepare model, which is the crisis intervention model by the National Association of School Psychologists, so that we're building internal capacity and the ability to work together so that when that crisis team comes on a particular campus, those folks that are already a part of that campus have been trained in that model and can join together with the team in doing the intervention for students.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Hunt.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Lee. Doctor, thank you for your report, and Mr. Walker, very nice, and I'm very pleased with it. I want you to talk a little bit about two of your goals. One is goal number 2, implement, promote district-wide initiatives in the areas of so on and so forth. You know, Mrs. Lock-Dawson has talked a lot about and given us insight that suicides among K-12 kids are up across the nation. There's a lot of pressure on them. I still hear from parents and grandparents about bullying on campuses. Tell me are these, as kind of was Mrs. Allaby's question, are these already in place and you're going to expand upon them, or what ideas do you have to bring that's new to the table on these 2 areas, particularly the social emotional that causes young people to go into destructive behavior, cutting, and eventually suicide. And then the other hand is the, been around forever, but the bullying situation, which now is expanded through social media.
Of course. As you know, as this board probably recalls, I believe it was about 1.5 years ago, you reviewed the Comprehensive Suicide Intervention and Prevention Manual that was developed. And part of this manual, it gets reviewed every year. We convene a group of our school counselors, our school psychologists, and our SAP counselors, as well as some of our administrators, to review that manual and those procedures surrounding that. And as part of that, we are constantly building on the current practices that we use to make sure that we're using the best practices that meet the needs of our school sites. So that is in a process of continuing improvement, as well as continuing to build capacity and training around that, and in terms of rolling those practices out and making sure that everybody has current training on that.
Does that include, excuse me, if I may ask, does that best practices and training include going to the staff level, the teacher level, to give them signs or understand how they may read the tea leaves of a young person and as they're, just help them experience some of that? I mean, I know they're very conscientious people, teachers and staff are, but are you going to somehow look to enhance that, or is that needed?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, and I'm not going to remember the Assembly Bill number, I should, since I worked on it most of the summer, but with the passage of the Assembly Bill requiring teachers, all teachers, grades 7 through 12, to receive some sort of suicide prevention and intervention training, we as a district made a decision to expand that to all of our teachers, starting with preschool. So we go preschool through adult school. And so all teachers, as part of their mandatory child abuse training, also viewed about a 15-minute video that was created over the summer on suicide intervention and prevention as part of that, to expand their knowledge in that area. So we did not just limit it to our 7th through 12th grade teachers, but really recognize that a lot of those signs that we want to be aware of in terms of potential mental health issues exist much earlier than that. And so we as a district made a decision to start that much earlier on. And at many of our school sites, we're doing additional trainings and staff meetings and those kinds of things in terms of how to intervene with suicidal students and recognize those signs.
Thank you. And now on to bullying, just what are we doing to, and I know they're all afraid of Mr. Walker, and that helps. So just paint your picture in all the schools. Mess with this guy and you're out of here. But what are we doing, Mr. Walker, to try to get across that this is unacceptable in our society?
In regard to the issue bullying. We have a comprehensive program that addresses bullying in the district. We have ongoing trainings. Dr. McGuire has a comprehensive review with all of the staff on a regular basis. We have the bullying report in our student handbook, in our parent handbook. All of our principals have been trained on the issue of bullying. And we also have at some of our schools automatic reporting where they can put in reports, they can do it anonymously, they can report on behalf of someone else. The sites follow through with each bullying report that is submitted, and then students are addressed in either a restorative practices circle or in other manner in order to address those particular concerns. We also have under the Ed Code, if necessary, under suspension, a portion that has bullying when it rises to that level, and that's after alternative means of correction are utilized, then the principal has the discretion to utilize other means, including suspension, when bullying is pervasive.
So at the district, State of the District luncheon, part of the film that Dr. Hansen's team put together had a little segment where there were little people, I think they were probably second or third graders, and they were having some sort of little seminar on bullying. So are we doing that at a lot of campuses or elementary?
That was during our anti-bullying week, and each school takes on different activities and in-service opportunities to make it very clear and go through different practices for bullying prevention at their schools. All of our SAP counselors, our psychologists, and again, our administrators have been trained on the signs of bullying and addressing the issues of bullying as they present themselves at their schools.
And Doctor, I'd like to hear more, not right now, but just as you begin to expand to goal number 7, I'm very, very pleased to see that this board has always wanted, and under Dr. Hansen's leadership, and before him, Rick Miller, we have begun to reach out to our higher education institutions here in town. We're blessed with that. So I'd be interested to find out how that grows and if you report back at some time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Dr. Farouk?
Thank you, President Lee. I want to commend both of you and the entire team for all of your incredible work, so thank you so much for your efforts. I have just a couple of comments. I know obviously the priority is with the students, and that's where the focus should be. But as Castleview shows as an example, the role that the mental health of parents, whether it's at the home in terms of how that impacts students, or unfortunate incidences like when they potentially come to the school site. I just wanted to get a better sense, because I saw that you guys are in goal number 1, that's referenced about providing resources for families, but what does that actually mean in terms of, is it a proactive effort, is it a passive effort in terms of where people make requests? I just wanted to get a sense of that. And then also related to that, my understanding is that from a government standpoint, it's the county that interfaces on mental health issues. Is that the case? In terms of providing services to the adults and community, it's the county that does that, right?
Certainly, it is the county currently that provides, or private practitioners that provide services to adults in the community. However, one of the goals that we really have is connecting what we're doing with students in the classroom with their parents. And so, for example, one of the programs that we use in many of our special education programs is the Boys Town Social Emotional Learning curriculum. And so last year in the winter, we had 6 of our psychologists trained as trainer of trainers in that model, in the Boys Town parenting model called Common Sense Parenting, so that we can connect what we're doing with the students in the classroom with specifically what we're prepared to train their parents in. And so with the advent of the new mental health building, we're hoping to create really a hub for parent training and continuing to build those programs and connecting parents with what we're doing with their students in the classroom.
Is there any direct coordination that we're doing with the county, though, on the parent and family side? Is there anything like formal in place about that? If not, it's okay. I just would want to encourage looking at if there's best practices nationally on that effort, or if there's something we could propose. I think there's a lot of potential synergies with respect to serving the same people.
At this point, I will say that we have begun our efforts in that area to really coordinate with some of the programs that are going on in the community. Myself and Mr. Diaz, who is also in our department, sit on several of the county mental health committees so that they have that input, at least from an educational standpoint, as we begin to build some more of those collaborative relationships.
Thank you.
And just to follow up, from a clinical perspective, that is the responsibility of the county. There are a few districts that have taken on the comprehensive nature. They're primarily in more rural districts where a district will take on all of the facilities associated and responsibilities for mental health, but it also includes the medical model. The district is not responsible for the medical model here, the county is. Let me move on at this point in time to address the next step in this presentation. So as a background of the current delivery of educational-related mental health services in RUSD, I want to share a little history of who has had responsibility for this area. In 1984, the California legislature took action through AB 36, 32, 25, 26, moving the responsibility of educational-related mental health services from school districts to the Department of Mental Health. This created a collaborative system whereby the district provided the educational program and the funding for such program if it was delivered in a public school. And the Department of Mental Health funded and provided the counseling, parent training, and support, the wraparound services and other supports, including residential placements that would include the costs that may be referred to as room and board for both in-state and out-of-state placements. In 2011, the financial difficulties in California were coming, and the legislation passed Assembly Bill 114, signed by Governor Schwarzenegger. This made individual school districts solely responsible for ensuring the full continuum of mental health services be provided to students with disabilities whose IEP team, in conjunction with assessments completed by qualified staff, determined the necessity for education-related mental health services. In regard to Goal 3, that was shared with you by Dr. Plaxton Hennings, I would like to review the targeted utilization of education-related mental health funding directed toward addressing the needs of students who receive services in this area. First, the funding is utilized to fund the employees involved in the provision of ERMs for students in special education who are assessed and found eligible for targeted support. In the past, as the change from the Department of Mental Health to the school district occurred, we entered into a memo of understanding with the University of California, Riverside to provide these services and supports. The Department of Psychology at UCR used doctoral interns and provided the needs for RUSD students who qualified for services. As time passed, we began to internalize the delivery of these services in this area and created positions to employ RUSD staff. Dr. Plaxton Hennings, who was in charge of the psychologist group in RUSD and the lead for overseeing the implementation of ERMs, became the Director of Mental Health and Psychological Services while keeping the responsibilities related to supporting secondary schools for special education. We hired a number of psychologists specifically to take on the assessments of students who may be in need of education-related mental health services and began to build a department of staff and support staff to address the needs of our qualified students. At this time, we are fully supporting our students in this area within RUSD with RUSD staff, providing only a number of specialty supports through the use of outside personnel. So the first area where ERMS funding can be utilized is on the expenditure of personnel. The second area where ERMS funding is being utilized is the payment of rent associated with the recently identified mental health building located at 3637 Arlington Avenue. The final contract was signed and the building will be worked on to put in data drops and phones. We anticipate the finalization of that and personnel moving over within as early as 2 weeks. This building will have an additional area where staff development meetings and trainings can take place for RUSD staff. The third area where ERMS funding can be utilized is in the cost of training, materials, and supplies for our ERMS staff, assessment materials, equipment that may be needed for specific students within their IEPs, training and services to parents, as well as the cost of therapeutic programs to students receiving educationally related mental health services. This final slide for today's presentation articulates the next steps that we intend to take as we move forward with finalizing mental health and wellness plan through the actions of our committee and other stakeholders. We will be collaborating with stakeholders across the district, as well as with members of the current committee, to identify action priorities and ensure alignment with RUSD initiatives. I would personally like to thank Dr. Plaxton Hennings for her leadership and the committee for their time, energy, and efforts in completing the work that has been done in this area. There are a lot of people and areas within the district that had input in this preliminary plan, and like the development of the Student Assistance Program, RUSD is at the forefront of preparing a comprehensive plan that provides for the students of our district in this identified area of need. At this time, Dr. Plaxton and I will be happy to take any additional questions.
Thank you. Exciting to see this. You said that leveraging some of our relationships with the universities, and remind me if we're using graduate students or folks getting hours, and how we're using them in different places.
So one of the things that we instituted this year was a competitive internship program for our school psychologists. So we are using graduate interns. We actually have interns from across 3 universities in that position. And then we're also using graduate level interns as counseling and mental health interns in our departments as well. So it's a very mutually beneficial relationship because it keeps us on our toes in terms of keeping current and teaching and training our interns as they bring in new ideas and fresh things from their university experience, and then it provides them the support and experiences that they need in that way. And we're continuing to build on those relationships as well.
And are they in like social work programs and family therapist program, MFT programs?
We currently have representation from all 3 programs. We have a couple of interns in our student assistance program that are in MSW programs. Right now in our educationally related mental health services, we have MFT interns that we are utilizing to take part of our counseling caseload. And then we have representatives from school psychology programs who are getting hours in with our school psychologists.
And you have enough, they want to do it. You're not having trouble finding people to do those things?
For our 3 competitive internship positions, I have to say I'm rather proud of us because we had about 40 applicants for those 3 positions. Wow. So we've developed a very good reputation and people want to do their training in Riverside. So I think that's very exciting.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Luck-Dawson. Was there anybody else? All right, thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you, Dr. Plaxton Hennings. Okay, so brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. But before we adjourn, I'd like to ask board members to share any comments and or items for future meetings. So why don't we start with our student board member, Michelle.
So first I'd like to begin reiterating what everyone said about what happened at Castleview last week. Thank you to the principal, to the staff, to all the emergency services, all the community members that reacted so quickly. From my perspective, what I got to see was a lot of terrified older siblings. While the facts were reasonably vague at the time of what was happening, there was some minor chaos, as some people in the area were wondering, what are my younger siblings? How are they doing? And towards the evening, there were many social media updates about my siblings are safe, we're okay, thank you, and how do I get back in my garage since there were so many emergency services within the neighborhood right outside people's homes. So that was interesting. Seeing student representatives tonight was really exciting. As you all know, I was on that side of the dais last year. And one thing that I'd like to note is the level of student engagement that we have across all 4 grades, especially at 2 of the most difficult grades in high school. I know there's a valid argument for each grade being the most difficult, but I'm really excited to see that there's engagement on the freshman level that we're really easing students into high school, whether it's through Link Crew, through these tutoring workshops, and on the very other end, the 12th grade level. Every week, there are so many workshops helping students apply to college, figuring out what they're going to do after high school, even if college isn't the next step. My friends and I are getting letters every single day for, here's this different workshop, financial aid, college, here's how to apply if you need any help. So there are an abundance of resources within the district, and I think these past few weeks have really exemplified that. Last week, as mentioned, was the second annual CS for All conference. While I didn't get to attend, I was really excited to watch my friends also on updating their social media, how exciting it was that they got to show off their projects. And the very next day, we had a Girls Who Code meeting, and so there were some very enthused girls who were very excited, very pumped up to begin the next project, so that if there happens to be another conference, we have some more stuff to show off. And Inspire Her Mind is next week. I'm reminiscing Inspire Her Mind completely. That was a very transformative experience my 10th grade year. I'm really excited that we're expanding it for boys as well. That was definitely looking back at high school, that was one of the most educational experiences. And if I had to pick one high school memory that definitely encouraged me to go into STEM, it would probably be Inspire Her Mind. And if anything, proves that on the bus ride home. I remember my friends and I were playing Beyonce's Who Run the World, Girls. So I have very many enthusiastic friends just from that conference. Glad that's still going on. Also, I think that we're a very progressive district for taking action tonight on the system engagement. Gallup poll was last week. I noticed this year that the Gallup poll was a little briefer than usual. And I have to say I'm a little disappointed, only because I always look forward to seeing those results and seeing the data we can get and what we can do with that data, how we can improve our end of the district and helping students out. But it was very convenient for my 4th period teacher that students were getting it done in 2 minutes and we could get back to studying Hamlet and whatever. On a more personal note, one thing I'm really excited for, so if you don't know, there were 2 Poly alum in the World Series, one playing for the Dodgers and one playing for the Astros. And on our school newspaper, the Poly Spotlight, we actually have a writer who got a connection with the Astros team manager and is interviewing some players for her upcoming article. And so in our newspaper class, we've been buzzing about that all week, texting her every day, did you interview them? So fingers crossed she'll get the interview sometime this week. And I'll definitely update you, email everyone this article. We're going to have fun with the publicity this time. I know I've talked a lot, but lastly, since this is my last regular board meeting, I have to thank everyone so much for this truly incredible experience, allowing me to speak my mind, give a student voice as much as I can, ask all of the annoying, silly questions I can, rambling on and on at the end with my comments like this. And thank you to everyone for just being completely supportive and welcoming, even when I'm the youngest person in the room, and listening to me like I am an adult, respecting me like I am an adult, and really giving me an avenue to be a voice for many other people. And while I might not get to sit up at the dais after this next board meeting, I hope this will not be the last you see of me for the rest of the year. I will try to be just as active and involved, if not more, especially coming second semester with the end of college applications. That's it.
Thanks, Michelle. And we're glad it's not your last meeting. We want to see more of you, so we'll see you at the next meeting too. And you're not rambling, so you take as much time as you need to share with us. All right, next we'll hear from the other side of the dais, Mrs. Alavi.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to just reiterate all the good thoughts and feelings that we've had about Castleview, and the gratefulness that I feel about how things turned out, that our teacher is okay and the students are okay. With all the week of trauma, it sort of clouded over the success of our State of the District luncheon, which was so fantastic. And I wanted to also thank everybody for that, because I think everyone involved did a great job. And I certainly thought it was an especially good way to feel good about all the positive things that are going on in the district and to share them with the community. And I really, really liked it. On another note, I wanted to say that, you know how people in the community send you things just willy-nilly? Well, I got a friend of mine was sending me a packet of information from the Boulder Unified School District, which does a unique professional development day in which they take the day after Christmas break. All the kids come back one day later from Christmas break, and they take that day as their PD day. And I thought about that for a while, and I thought that does make some sense in some ways, to have your PD day in the middle of the school year at a time when you've been in class for several months and you're putting all this stuff to use, and you can reflect on what your first part of the year was and put it to use in the second part of the year. And that made me think about how we haven't really had a chance as a board to evaluate our PD day or have any input into our PD day or even talk about it. So I would like to bring that up, because I would like to have that kind of input into our professional development. Particularly, I wanted to express that I had some CSEA members come to me afterwards and suggest that they would like to have a day in which they get to choose what they get to hear about. I don't know if you knew, but CSEA members were sent to specific lectures as opposed to getting to choose. And I think we need to talk about how that day resonates for everybody, and what is the most positive way to do that. So I would like to bring that up as a future topic of discussion. And lastly, I would like to say that, Michelle, you have been a great board member. Not a student board member, a great board member. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Allaby. Mr. Hunt.
I agree with Mrs. Allaby, Michelle, and I thank Mr. Lee for not calling on me after you spoke. So
I got your back. That's fine.
W.C. Fields used to say, "Never follow a child actor," you know. So, but you've been wonderful, and it's just a pleasure sitting next to you. And I'll lean over and ask her student-type questions, and I'm really thrilled. And thank you, Mrs. Allaby and Dr. Farouk, for spending your time, I think, Mr. Lee, too, vetting these students this year. So, just wonderful. Of course, about Castleview and all. In my 10 years, there's been a lot of wonderful things in this district, including tough times when we balanced the budget with money that didn't exist and wasn't coming and that sort of thing. But I think this was the district's finest hour. It was an example of professional planning and strategy, and then technical implementation. I thank you, Mr. Walker, and you and your team for all you did there. I do want to say, not to be the downer, but you know, we live in a time that is unlike anything I think most of us, I'm 62 now, but have ever seen. Maybe the time of civil strife, civil rights strife, but really when you go back into history, but it's a time when people are just caring about them, not people, but there's a segment, they're just caring about themselves, not listening. I mean, why would someone do like they did in Las Vegas? And that was 3 weeks before Castleview. And then a week before Castleview was someone mowing down people in a van in over a mile in New York. And then yesterday, a little church, the kind of church I used to go to as a kid, about that size, you know, and that many people someone just came in for his own reasons. So, you know, Castleview was, as Chief Diaz says, wasn't a complete success because we did lose a citizen and probably one who needed help. And as someone I know his mother, and she's a fine leader in this community, and I feel for his little girl. But I think we're going to have to realize, and I know Dr. Hanson and Mr. Walker have already been working on it, but we have to even more harden our sights and see what else we can do. And we have to, I was pleased, Dr. Hanson, you had a police officer here tonight, because you would never think it would happen, but either to those people in that little church in the middle of nowhere, Texas, yesterday. So we have to be vigilant, and I know that this board before took some of the end, and Mrs. Alvey, remember, Mrs. Lactasa, remember, we took some of the last bit of the Measure B money and diverted it to making sure those sites all went through the office. But I think we need to look at that. I think we need to look at our, oh my God, what's the site across from Gage? I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that's kind of an open campus, needs to be looked at. Later this week, Dr. Farouk and I will be meeting on your behalf, Mr. San Martin as well, with the County Office of Planning to look at their plans, their housing element plans, very similar to what we just saw with the city, and we met with the city on, for both the Lake Matthews area and particularly for High Grove. High Grove is going to have some really explosive growth, and we're going to need to, I think, figure that into our long-term planning. There's also, because we're a district of choice, we're going to need to pay attention to two things that are happening. One is that the Lewis Group is going to be doing a big housing project right near the border there of High Grove and Grand Terrace of about 1,000 homes. And they're both, I looked into it, both of the, there's 2 elementary schools in Grand Terrace, both of them are impacted now. So being a district of choice, we built a brand spanking new school over there, right? You know, they're going to be applying, which could be good, you know, I mean, and maybe Sergio and I were talking this, maybe it is his idea he presented earlier, maybe it is a K-8. But also the assistant director of planning, Jay, pulled me aside the other day and said, you know, we need to follow up on the meeting we had before, in that I think most of us know where the Ab Brown soccer fields are. Right across the street from the Ab Brown, or street, so to speak, Center Street, that's the line between us and Colton. There's a huge, almost a bowl of land, and there's mountains behind it, and it's over 100-something acres. It's owned by our public utility. Our public utility can own land, unlike the city can outside. It's called Ranch, Palaceres Ranch. For years, the city council wanted that to be industrial. Colton wouldn't allow it. So now they're working on a plan together that it would be housing. And if you live there, unless they build a school there, your child's going to have a tough time getting your child over to a Colton school. So again, we could be impacted, and maybe it's something we want to work with Colton Unified on. But we need to add this, Mr. San Martin and Dr. Farouk, to our studies to bring back to this board. But and the whole North Side plan as well. They're wondering about it. Will we want to put a school on the North Side plan? So I think it's an interesting time in Riverside, but one we need to be, and we are, staying up with. I wasn't cribbing off of Mrs. Allavy's notes, but I too wanted to have more understanding, Dr. Hanson, about Professional Development Day. I know that day, and I understand it's the salaries mainly, but that day cost us about $1.5 to $2 million. What did we get out of it? How are we evaluating it? How are we making sure that expense and that time that Mrs. Alvey brought up do we get the best return on it? Lastly, I ran into 3 different RCCD board members recently, different times, and I would ask that the superintendent, along with the president and vice president, would work on, and 2 of them specifically said this, and I asked the other one, but they want a joint meeting with us. And as we're talking about middle colleges and doing things with them, as they're about to go through a change in their top executive leadership, I think it's time that I would like to see us do that by the beginning of next year, have a joint meeting. We had one a long time ago, Mrs. Alvey, you recall. And then have the vice president and president and superintendent work on an agenda to bring back to both boards so we can have a real functional and collaborative meeting. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Dr. Farouk.
Thank you, President Lee. I know a lot's been said about council view, so I won't say too much more about that, but just that I'm obviously very grateful and proud to be a part of this district and this community. And I think it also, was very timely to hear about the great work we're doing on mental health and how we can be proactive in addressing some of these issues from coming up in the future. I wanted to bring up about the earned income tax credit. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but the state legislature expanded it recently, and it's a very powerful public policy tool to alleviate poverty. And given the fact that 66% of our families here at RUSD qualify for free reduced lunch, this is something that can materially impact their lives tremendously. And so at the Family Engagement Summit this past Saturday, we hosted the EITC For Me workshop and campaign. It's a public-private partnership that's going statewide to make sure that families actually know about this and they can qualify for it. Only 1 out of every 5 families that qualify actually are aware of this, and it's a lot of resources. For example, a family making $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a year, they can potentially get up to $6,000 back on their refund for claiming this. And so we want to create that awareness. And with that, I would like to request that we adopt a resolution to help create more awareness. I've sent a copy of it to President Lee and Dr. Hansen already, but I encourage us to get that on a future board meeting. And then lastly, I just want to say how proud I am of Michelle. And I know that the sincerity behind what she means when, regardless of whether she's on the dais, how engaged she's going to be in trying to make a difference for students and for the community. And can't wait to see all the great things you're going to be doing after you graduate from high school as well. So really proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Mrs. Luck-Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Michelle, to your point about listening to you, I think we're all eager to hear from young people. If you're a smart person or you want to hear from people your age, I think. And I mean, there's a comment I made in one of my graduation addresses was that, people that think Michelle's generation is a bunch of ne'er-do-wells who are addicted to social media and they don't care and they are self-involved, have not hung around with people like Michelle. And I mean, my daughter's friends, I think. So thank you. We love to hear from you. A couple things I just want to say. Castleview, everything else that's going on, ineffable. I can't describe my feelings and how I feel about our response, but as I said in my address at the community meeting, I do think, we can do our best to stop these things, but we can't guarantee they won't happen again, but we can guarantee well-prepared staff, well-prepared crisis team, and loving and caring teachers. And so that is something that is in our control, and we will always have that here, I think. You saw it play out last week. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Hansen, I'm on the UCR Graduate School of Advisory. I think Mrs. Alavi, you are too, the Community Advisory Board for Graduate School of Education. Are you on it? No? Okay. But they are doing such very cool, interesting things at GSOE, which have implications for us as a school district. Could we ask Dr. Smith to come back and give us an update? He did it last fall, I think, did he not? So they've got some really exciting things I heard them talk about the other day. They're launching an undergraduate degree in education. Never had that before. Let's see. I love the new VAPA collateral. Where did that come from? Love it. The signs and our VAPA, I don't know if Anne Marie saw it there, the VAPA brochure we put out, I think it's finally coming to fruition, a vision we've had for the district. And we have some more exciting things hopefully coming up with partnerships with UCR, with film and media. So we met today. And then lastly, November 15th, we'll have a screening of a documentary of a film called Our Kids, American Crisis. That was based on the book by Robert Putnam that came out last year. And it'll be here at 5:30, I think. 5:30 we're going to have that with, and we have the producer and director of the movie coming out, and he will be, we'll have a seminar with it. So please come. It will be nice. We're doing it in conjunction with the UCR Randall Lewis seminars. So that is all I have. It is time to go home. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lockdawson. I'll try to get through mine quickly because I know I'm the one person between you and the door. So state of the district, I know it doesn't seem like it was just a few weeks ago, but with all that's transpired, but it was a great success. So I'm really proud of that whole team that put that together. And in echoing or playing off of what Mr. Hunt said about me not having him call on after Michelle, thank you, Dr. Hanson, for not making me go after the student speaker. Because Anaya did a great job, and her story was really inspirational. And I like that we have, you know, somebody from the board and somebody from the student community, and then you finishing it off. So I think that format was really good, and I've heard nothing but positive comments from everybody in the community, including the mayor's office, who asked his staff to step up the game. So I think that's a great compliment. So thank you to everyone who did that. Second, wanted to just mention about the Inland Code Consortium. Congratulations to Dr. Perez and your team for organizing that. Like 650 people were there. Great keynote speaker, great panelists. The keynote was Hadi. He's the CEO of Code.org, superstar of the coding world, and to see all the students, treat him like Austin Barnes of the Dodgers afterwards and want to get their picture taken with him was pretty cool to see. One of my favorite things that he said was make school fun again. Like that's his mission, and what he's doing is to make school fun again. And we've seen it in our Gallup poll results. We see as kids get older, they get less engaged. So I'd like to make this mental note when we start organizing our LCAP next year and kind of redefining what we want to do. And I know, at least what I can't recall, is there's been a whole lot of discussion regarding computer science education in our community meetings for LCAP and devoting dollars to that. But we know from our own experience and experience throughout other districts, 90% of parents want this experience for their kid. And when we were up in St. Louis, we heard the same thing at all these other participating districts. The challenge, of course, is how do you add it to the plate? So that was a question that we asked everybody else that's doing these things, and nobody really has an answer. So I realize it's a challenge, but I think it's really important that we add this opportunity for more of our students, every one of our students, because this computational thinking that is gained through this kind of work is essential for our kids to grow and to be competitive in the jobs that we don't know exist yet. So I really want to make sure we talk about that during the next LCAP prioritization. Also talking about LCAP, I want to commend this community and the staff and all the board members for making our SAP counselors a priority in the LCAP. I mean, what would we have done today if we didn't prioritize that as an LCAP priority? I mean, there was, we talked about, someone mentioned A, B, and C teams. A through Z was there today. There was no shortage of support for anybody and everyone that needed it. So I'm really thankful that this community values that aspect and that this district is able to deliver on that. So again, just congratulations to Mr. Walker and the team. Declining enrollment, we heard from the budget that we have declining enrollment this year. There's a projection, we heard it in the subcommittee, that predicted declining enrollment next year. And while that might be related to birth rates or whatever it's related to, I think it's an opportunity to recruit students to try to fill some of these vacancies and increase capacity at some of our sites. We saw success in the staff doing this with our free and reduced lunch, making a concentrated effort and a marketing approach going from 61 to 66, and that that earned us millions of dollars. And I think we need to do the same thing with our declining enrollment. So putting some resources, whether it's staff or dollars, to marketing to our communities. Mr. Hunt made a few suggestions to increase enrollment so we don't have these budget constraints come next year. Along the same ideas on recruitment, about employees. So I'd like to think about some creative ways how we can recruit employees for some of our areas of need. And I know in a future board meeting, we're going to go through some of those numbers and that data we heard a couple of meetings ago or the last meeting. So we know early literacy, early numeracy, math, science, special ed, these are areas of need that we need improvement on. And if we can attract the best and the brightest, whether they're coming right out of school or from another district, I think we need to find some new creative ways to attract them besides what we're doing right now. Almost done, a couple more things, sorry. I heard from UCR Alumni Association that currently right now we don't have any student teachers from UCR. So I know that we're working on that. So I just would encourage us to partner with the Alumni Association, partner with UCR to, is that not correct, Kylie? Okay. So my information's incorrect, but to ensure we continue to partner with our colleges to get more student teachers from our area. And last, a big eye roll to boys who feel left out by Inspire Mind. My wife has a saying that she tells my boys when they tell me something's not fair. She says, life is fair, it's just not always equal. So I think it's great, fine, the boys can have it too, but just because one type of student has it doesn't mean every type of student has it. But if there's room to include the boys, great, and I'm glad we're making room for them. So with that, we'll adjourn tonight's meeting. And unfortunately, we're adjourning tonight's meeting in far too many individuals that were far too young. First, give me a second. Jorge Vargas, who passed away this weekend. He was a 2017 King High graduate. Chris Mance, who passed away the 25th, who was a Lake Matthews student. Dan Bordeaux, a teacher at Arlington High School, I think a former teacher at Arlington High School, who passed away on October 24th. Caitlin Holloway, she was a 2014 King High School graduate who passed away on October 14th. Janice Jerger, I hope I'm saying that right, former teacher at Ramona High School. And she came back after and was a substitute. She passed also away on October 14th. And then finally, the 26 victims who died in the shooting at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. So in their honor, we'll adjourn the meeting.